I gotta say, I've been a lazy asshole. I've done nothing but jack off and play WoW for the past couple of months while also getting cucked by work. My goal of beating all the games in my Steam library, well, that shit's fucking stagnant now. I haven't touched anything in quite some time, and I haven't really done anything in general for way too long. Except for a couple of indie games that I kind of want to talk about right now. One being Verlet Swing. This is a game I knew nothing about, not even its existence, until a buddy of mine just told me, hey dude, just check it out. And after looking at one screenshot, oh baby, was I in. So what the fuck is this game? Well, I guess you could say it's a movement game akin to Surf and KZ maps in CS. My love for movement tech and game modes had me knowing that I probably love Verlet Swing no matter what it was like. And well, it's as if you were an OSPI version of Peter Parker stuck in the EcoJam's world of Scooby-Doo's Cyber Chase. With the aesthetic choices that Flamebait Games took, one would think that the soundtrack would take from the world of Vaporwave as a genre, and surely it does. Mostly borrowing from the Vapor Trap subgenre, but cleaning up the more experimental parts of the genre and adding synthwave flavors in the mix, or at least in World 4. The tracks help soothe my mind and relax, while falling perfectly into the background. They add to the complete aesthetics of the game, and I couldn't imagine it without it. The tracks are fantastic, but I can see people disliking the music due to the Vapor Trap and Vaporwave inspirations. Luckily for those who hate it, it's still just background music and can be muted and played without it. Perfectly fine. The tracks, bangers. The levels, also bangers. The actual gameplay is so simple, a man without a prefrontal cortex can understand how shit works. You grapple and swing your way through the level to beat it in the fastest time you can. The top 100 leaderboards popping up after every completion, egging you on to retry and do that just a little bit better. The devs did a great job creating worlds and levels that gradually help the player understand how the physics work, as well as teaching players creativity to beat the game. Many of the levels have sizable shortcuts or complete level skips that only take a little bit of time to look for. Trust me, all that learning is needed for the last world. Completing the last world took me the same amount of time as completing the rest of the game, and the last level, just by itself, took me under 2 fucking hours to complete. Sanity was lost and murder upon devs were wished as per usual, but I joined the 2.2% of players who completed this hellish game. What is there to do after you beat the game? Well, there are challenges that change some of the mechanics of the game, like disabling in-air movement and some of the other shit that I'm too lazy to look up. Then there are the marathon modes for each world and the whole game. See, that one is my favorite. Each challenge has their own leaderboards to be a part of, plus you can go back and replay every level you want to get on the leaderboards too. The replayability of this game is pretty good if you're into speed games and speed running and all sorts of the like. Honestly, there isn't much to Verlet Swing. It's just a movement game where the devs seemingly wanted to make a fun and difficult game. The Vaporwave aesthetics is well used and adds to the charm of the game. Verlet Swing is now one of my favorite indie games, and I'm still playing it, going so far as to keep attempting the whole game marathon to get my time down to a sub 1 hour. Seeing how it took me 2 hours to beat the last level, I'd say that's pretty good so far. I highly recommend most people to just check it out, and it's usually pretty fucking cheap anyways. The second game I played was Katana 0, a game I first saw when another buddy of mine came over and showed it to me on his Switch. I knew that it was something that I'd love. Looking at it reminded me of Hotline Miami, a game I love to play inebriated, so I thought it'd be the ride. Katana 0 got me fucked up, so let's talk about it. Like a fucking nerd, I noticed and fell in love with the music first. Katana 0's OST is beyond bangers. Like Hotline, Katana uses synthwave music as its OST. The tracks by themselves are fantastic hype tracks, to be used to work out to, or just to jam to. The music helps create a sense of tension because it just pushes you to be fast and smooth. But does the gameplay accommodate the soundtrack? Fuck yeah, it does! Unlike Hotline Miami, Katana 0 is a 2D pixel action platformer, which means it's just like every other indie game that's come out in the past 5 years. While playing, I straight up started singing Metal Slug for some reason, but this time you kinda just run side to side, cutting people up with your katana, clearing out rooms to ultimately fight a boss, Then boom, some exposition and cutscenes. The game's puzzle-like design lends to the game's difficulty. While it isn't the most difficult thing I've played, it does require some thought, fast reactions, and a little mechanical know-how. The game's main feature seems to be a slow motion mode to help make things easier. Sadly, it does seem impossible to press multiple inputs together, so you can't slow down time and strike at the same time, and you can't throw an item or dash at the same time. I understand that it probably make things even easier, but my hands just want to do some funky stuff like that. So yeah, the gameplay isn't anything completely new, but it's very well done and it feels super good. It has a solid tactile feel to it with all the effects on it and the sound design to it. Shit just feels good, I don't know. So why do I like the game so much despite the gameplay being nothing completely original? I love it because of the plot and how it actually contextualizes some of the mechanics of the game. I'm probably gonna spoil some of the important bits, so be warned. So the main character is a samurai man who suffers from PTSD. He of course becomes part of an underground assassination ring where a psychiatrist gives him his orders and gives him some drugs to help deal with it. But little does he know that it's some real crazy shit that gives the feeling of time stopping. As the plot goes on, it further develops and gives the reasoning for the retry option after failing a level. It's some meta shit, but it actually ends up making it seem somewhat believable, or as believable as it would be if you lived in some dystopian city where poor vets are secluded into one slum section in town. Personally, I love when games contextualize dumb game stuff like that, and it also helps as the story develops. It becomes some insane psychological mystery that isn't too afraid to spread some of that insanity out. Other characters in the game are pretty insane in the sense that they aren't okay in the head. Actually, that kind of makes sense since most of them are drug addicts, murderers, or even test subjects. There even seems to be some character choices that add to some of the replayability of the game, but thankfully for me, the devs made a speedrun mode where I don't have to deal with the cutscenes and some of the extra fluff added onto it. Honestly, I wasn't too surprised that I like Katana Zero, but I am surprised by how much I like the story. Pretty much everything about the game is strong, from the looks to the gameplay. Katana Zero is only 15 bucks, so it's pretty cheap for a fantastic game, and I've seen it go on sale fairly often. I would say I'd recommend it, but I'm sure that most people could tell if they'd be into it just from looking at the screenshots and a tiny bit of gameplay. But hey, I loved it if that's worth anything. Actually, I love both games, and I still kind of play them for speed purposes. They both make me feel like I'm good at the game, or at least can be good. It's something that I look for in most of my games because the puzzle boy in me is interested in that stuff. If you're interested in watching this puzzle boy, feel free to sub or follow me on my Twitch channel, where I play most games that I'll review or something. I guess that's it. Good night.